Welcome back. So glad you could be here. Thank you for watching the video. I did get finished with the face frame. It's all glued up and almost ready to go. What I did was I used the Festool machine and dominoes to reinforce all of these joints because I really wanted a rigid, strong structure for the face frame. Now, when I use the domino machine, I like to clamp a piece or two of wood to my workbench to use as backstops for the workpiece to make sure they don't move when I'm sliding the domino machine in and making the cut. And it really works out pretty well. And when I did the glue up, what I did was I actually took one of the panels for the cabinet and I covered it with wax paper, just taped it on the back side. The wax paper keeps the panel clean and keeps the face frame pieces from sticking. And I was able to put the face frame pieces, glue them together and put them on top of the panel. And then when I clamped it, I could clamp both pieces at the same time. And what that did was assure that the face frame is absolutely identical in size to the panel. And that, in turn, will assure that we get a nice square glue up for the whole assembly. Well, Maria, I want to thank you for this wonderful hat. As you can probably tell, I'm kind of having a bad hair day, and this is really helping out. Well, let's get going on the project. A drum sander is a great tool to have in your shop for a whole lot of different purposes, but it really excels at face frames. If for some reason the individual joints in your face frame are not absolutely perfectly aligned, a drum sander will bring those into just perfect alignment with just a couple of 2 or 3 passes. Now, of course, since I use the Festool domino joinery system, these joints were aligned very nicely. However, there was a little bit of glue squeeze out that I didn't even bother to clean up because I knew I was going to be running it through the drum sander to bring the thickness down to match our plywood. So let's get this going. Okay, as you can see, that's beautiful. Even my pencil marks are gone. I'm just going to check this against the plywood to see how we're doing on our thickness, and we're pretty much ready for this piece. All right, we've got our 2 side sub-assemblies. They're ready. The face frame's ready. The other panel is ready. So we could go ahead and glue up the cabinet, but it's going to need to be in the clamps for a little bit, and I want to get a couple things done before we do this glue up. And the first thing is our aluminum square stock that's going to be used for the table mechanism. And I had one piece that I cut in half just to use on a temporary basis, and I'm just going to slide this in here now. And the only thing you want to do is just make sure that it slides in and out. You want it to be snug but easy to slide in and out. You just don't want it to stick anywhere. And remember, I am going to wax these so they'll slide in more smoothly after that's done. However, if you have one of these cavities where the tube is sticking, here's a little way that you can take care of that. I took a piece of our 3/4 inch plywood stock and I ripped off a piece a little less than 3/4. And on the end, I used some contact cement and put 60 grit sandpaper on all 4 sides. And all you have to do is push this in and just slide it back and forth and sand the edges of your cavity smooth. And if you have a place where it's sticking, that'll take care of it. All right, so here's what we want to do. I'm going to use this piece that we cut in half first, and I'm going to put this in here, and I'm going to go back to our marking. This leg is the right front, so I'm going to use a permanent marker here, and I'm going to put RF on this tube, and I'm going to put an arrow aiming towards this end. Basically call this the top. So we've got right front in the right front cavity. I'm going to slide this in until it bottoms out. And then what I want to do is I want to use, I'm going to take off my glasses to do this. I want to use a good rule here. And I want to mark up from the front edge here 5/8 of an inch in order to do a final cut. And I'm just going to put a mark there at 5/8 of an inch. And I'm going to take this out and I'm going to turn it and I'm going to put another mark just to make sure. All you got to do is slide it in till it hits, slide this up to the top, and then hold the 2 pieces together, the rule and the tube, slide them out so you can get to it easier, and make your mark at 5/8 of an inch. And that's going to be our cut mark to get our final cut length for this tube. So now we have the right front. Let's see, this is the left rear. Now I've got a full length piece here I haven't cut yet, so I'm going to put this in here and I'm going to mark this left rear with an arrow pointing up. Make sure that doesn't come off. And I'm going to put our mark at 5/8 of an inch. And again, turn it and make an additional mark just to make sure. Let's do it this way this time. Okay. Now, I've got this one marked, so I'm going to turn it and I'm going to put this one into this one. And this one is the left front. And I'm going to put my mark on here. Slide this in all the way. And again, mark 5/8 of an inch. Now, you see we've got 2 marks on this one. This will be our waist here. Because we'll get 2 pieces out of this 4-foot long stick. And there we go. I've already marked this one. I've got this one marked as the right rear, but I haven't marked the length on here for the cut. So let's mark that there. And there we go. Okay, we've got all 4 of our tubes marked now. So out of curiosity, let's just see how this came out. That is at 21 7/8. 21 7/8. 21 7/8. And 21 7/8. So we have consistency. So now what we need to do is we need to cut these. And to do that, we're going to use something that we've actually used before. I love recycling jigs. All right, do you remember this? This is the little jig that we made to glue up the first L-shaped piece inside the leg. And what I've done is I used my dovetail saw, and I made a kerf perfectly vertical in this little jig. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to clamp this down to the edge of my outfeed table so that it doesn't move. And I'm going to use this as a sawing guide for the hacksaw and hopefully get a decent straight cut. I'm not real good with a hacksaw, but if it's not perfect, we'll be able to clean it up because that 5/8 inch dimension could actually be a 1/2 inch. So I'm giving myself just a little bit of space there just in case I need to clean up the end. All right, so let's clamp this in and saw this piece. Well, it's not perfect, but I think it's better than I could have done freehand. So, okay, there's one, 3 more to go. All right, I've taken our same little jig and I've just turned it around and put the end of it off of the bench here and clamped it back down. And the reason for that is because I want to use a regular file and just take the sharp edges off that are left over after sawing these to length. Don't want to get scratched on this and don't want it to get hung up inside the channel if we were to put these in the wrong way. Okay, I've got one of our sides standing up now on its side and the notch is up, and this is right front. So I've got my aluminum stock here, the one labeled right front, and I'm going to put that label on the notch side just for orientation purposes so I don't forget. I'm going to slide this all the way into the bottom, and I'm just going to lightly hold it there in place. I'm going to have to use a pencil because my permanent marker won't get down into this notch, but we're going to go with a pencil and mark around, say the bottom 3/4 of an inch to an inch. It's a half round at the end and up the 2 sides. And we just want to mark this really good. And pencil doesn't write on aluminum too well, so you got to go over it a few times. We're going to get a good mark on there. And then we're going to pull that out. And yeah, that's a semi-visible mark. And then what we're going to do with my combination square set at 3.5 inches, we're going to come in here, hold this against the end, and make a mark across at the 3.5 inch point, right across here. And that's all there is to marking that. because we are going to find the physical center of this from side to side at the drill press, and that's going to be our drill location. So I'm going to do that with all four. Okay, our aluminum bar stock pieces are cut to length, they're marked out, and they're ready to go. The next step that we need to do is go to the drill press, and we're going to drill holes, and we're going to tap threaded holes here where we made these marks. But before we get started on that, I want to go ahead and glue up the basic cabinet assembly so that it can be sitting and curing while we're doing that next step. So let's get going on this. What we need to do is get some glue into the remaining 4 dados and just simply glue in the face frame and our third solid panel. Now on this particular glue up, unlike some of the others, we're going to need to be careful of squeeze out on the visible portions of this cabinet. After getting the first application of glue into these grooves, I'm going back now and putting a little bit more in because that first application has soaked in and tacked up just a little bit. The second application always goes in a lot smoother and faster. And you want to make sure you get glue up on the sides of the dado. Okay. This might be easier to do if it was laying down, but I want to do it standing up if I can. Do a little pounding here. Okay, now the way I'm going to clamp this is a clamp across the bottom, and a clamp across the top. I might put a clamp in the middle if the mood strikes me. But before I get all crazy here, I want to check for square. And I'm just using my small combination square to do this. Just a little out there. Let's loosen this clamp up. Okay. Aha. Perfect. Okay. I'm not putting a tremendous amount of force on these clamps. It's really not necessary. Just enough to hold it sturdy. And let's check again. Okay, I think that looks pretty good. I'm going to put a couple of clamps in the middle. Wow. Huh. I don't think I've ever lucked out and gotten one that perfect. All right, the last thing I want to do is just check and make sure I haven't gotten any little ugly glue squeeze outs here that are going to make it difficult to finish this and make it pretty. None there. See if there's any back here. Nope. No, nothing there. There's a little bit on the inside, but I'm not all that concerned with that. Gee, that looks pretty good. Now, one last thing that you can do is check your width across here and here to make sure you have the clamps tightened up evenly. So there we go. Now we can move on to our metal tubes. So I'm at the drill press now, and what we want to do is we want to cut 1/4 threaded holes through our aluminum square stock here, and we want that thread to go through one side and through the other because we're going to thread in a bolt that's going to catch both sides of this piece of aluminum stock. So what I've done is I've taken the scrap, which was where I cut the long 48-inch piece into 2 pieces, and this was the center that was cut out, and I've got that set up for a test. And the first thing we need to do is drill the pilot hole that comes with the drill and tap set. This is the matching drill bit, and so we want to run that through first and drill the hole. And we want to go all the way through. Now normally if this was steel, whoa, I just picked it up a little bit. If this was steel, I'd probably put a drop of oil on here, but this is aluminum and it's pretty soft. So I think we can just go right through. All right, now I've got the hole drilled through both sides. So now what I want to do is to make sure I get my tap started perfectly straight. And to do that, I'm going to take out the drill bit and I'm going to put the tap in. And all I'm going to do is just make it finger tight. I'm not going to use the chuck key. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to lower this down with just very slight pressure, and I'm going to turn the chuck and start the threading process. Okay, I see it starting to cut threads. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to loosen up my chuck, if I can figure out which way is looser. And I'm going to raise that up, which is going to leave my threading bit perfectly vertical in this. And at this point now I can take my tool that fits over the end of this and turn it the rest of the way. So let's take a look at that. Okay, this is the little handle that fits over this. And I'm going to put this on and tighten it up. And I'm rocking just a little bit. You know what? I'm going to have to remove the clamp. That's okay, because we're done with that section of it anyway. So now let's just see if we can go real straight, or as straight as possible, through here. A little bit of downward pressure. Now normally in steel you'd want to back up and break these threads as you're cutting them, but with the aluminum, I'm going to get this out where you can see it just a little bit better. With the aluminum it's not quite as critical. Alright, I'm through and I've threaded the one side. So now what I'm going to do is move this off to the side, and I'm going to go on down and get to the hole on the other side. Maybe. How far is it? There we go. And I can feel it starting to cut on the other side. Okay, we're through on the other side. So now let's back this all the way out. Carefully. Okay. Now, I've got a 1/4 threaded bolt. I'm going to thread this in here. And I'm going to thread it all the way through and get it just flush with the surface on the other side. And that is exactly what we're looking for. So this looks like the concept is going to work okay. It's time to cut one of the real ones. Alright, now so what I've done is I've set up a stop block just to get the distance from the bottom fixed. And the fence is fixing the drill bit in the middle of the stock here. I've clamped it down. I'm going to hold this in to keep it from raising up as I drill. And I'm going to go ahead and drill all four and then come back, change this over to the tap and get the tap started and tap all the holes. So kind of do it in a production fashion here. Okay, so with the workpiece clamped back in place with the hole pre-drilled, I've got the threading piece here loosely clamped into the chuck, and what I'm going to do is just push it down, a little pressure, and just get it started to make sure that we're getting it started straight. And as soon as I feel it cutting threads and giving me a little bit of resistance, I'm going to loosen up the chuck and let that up. Then I can move this over here where I can get to it a little bit better. Put our little handy dandy handle tool up here, and then just go straight in, slow and easy, and cut those threads. And you'll feel immediately when the threads have been cut, because it'll just start to thread right in. Now when it gets to the other side, I can see it just poking out there, and I want to go in just far enough so that my 1/4 threaded rod will catch in the threads in that end. That should be just about right. So we'll back this out of here, nice and easy. And we'll take our 1/4 threaded rod here. And it goes right to the end and flush with the end there. That's perfect. Exactly what we're looking for. So I just got to do this 3 more times, and these aluminum sticks here will be prepped and ready to go. All right, well, these are done. They're ready to be mounted into the legs, but we're going to have to wait until the next video to do that. I was also hoping to get at least started on building the 2 tops that I want to build for this cabinet, but we'll have to wait till the next video because we're really running long. Listen, I really appreciate you watching this. Thank you so very much, and I'll look forward to seeing you in the next video.